Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's ITB Academy webinar. Next to me is sitting Mr. Métais, and he is going to explain to us how to gain successfully European funding. And he's the European Union project manager of emcra. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, wherever you are. I am Pierre-Étienne Métais, your trainer for this live webinar today, live from Berlin. So let's start. Before I begin, I would like to say that this presentation has not been funded by the European Union, and this content reflects only the view of the author, that means of emcra. For a reason related to the format and duration of this webinar, some content has been simplified. And the first implication from now on, I will use the acronym EU, for example, for the European Union. Some preliminary remarks. Tourism is a recent competency of the European Union, well, actually only since 2009. Compared to other competencies of the European Union, it's quite a recent one, like I said, and it implies that tourism is a transversal issue in the funding of the EU. You will see concretely what it means. Well, tourism is, of course, a shared competency, which means that the member states still have their tourism policy and funding for that. Here are some more indication about what kind of EU funds you can apply for. Basically, grants, public contracts, prizes, loans, guarantees, and equity funding. Grants are direct financial contributions by way of donation, whereas public contracts, for example, they are contracts for pecuniary interest concluded between one or more economic operators and one or more contracting authorities in order to obtain, against payment of a price paid, the supply of movable or immovable assets, the execution of works, or the provision of services. Prizes means a financial contribution given as a reward following a contest. Loans, as you know, means an agreement which obliges the lender to make available to the borrower an agreed sum of money for an agreed period of time, and under which the borrower is obliged to repay that amount within the agreed time. Guarantees means a written commitment to assume responsibility for all or part of a third party's debt or obligation. And finally, equity funding or equity investment means the provision of capital to a firm invested directly or indirectly in return for total or partial ownership of that firm, and where the equity investor may assume some management control of the firm and may share the firm's profit. So when we speak about EU funding, we speak about all of these type of funding. As a consequence, recipients of EU funding are all forms of legal persons, public, profit-oriented, non-profit. Well, the only exception is that private persons, so without legal status, may not be eligible to all of the EU funding. Well, in general, they are not eligible for EU funding. There are some exceptions. And these persons should be established in one of the EU member states or in a cooperation country of the EU. And who provides the funds? There are mainly two European institutions who do that. On the one side, the European Commission, on the other side, the European Investment Bank. Here are, sorry for that, the two logos again. And as you guess, the European Commission will be the one in charge of the grants, of EU grants, and the European Investment Bank would be rather in charge of the loans, guarantees, and equity investment. So basically at this stage you should already determine what you want to get. Is that grants or is that loans and guarantees? And this will determine the next step. For the rest of the presentation, we will focus on the grants of the European Commission. Here are famous quotes about tourism from the European Commission. They are all of them drawn off the communication of 2010 called Europe, the world's #1 tourist destination. And actually, this is one of the quotes, Europe must remain the world's #1 destination, able to capitalize on its territorial wealth and diversity. From the same document, you can also see what kind of priorities the EU pays to tourism. Must offer sustainable and high-quality tourism. But also, tourism must take into account constraints linked to climate change, which is a very important horizontal policy and priorities of EU funding in all aspects of all projects. As I said, let's speak about grants. What are the general principles applicable to grants? Well, first of all, grants must imply co-financing, which means that you, as an applicant, must provide, you or a third party, it could be a sponsor or partner, should provide some part of the budget for the project you intend to implement. And the amount of the co-financing that the EU gives is determined on a case-by-case, on the basis of the programs you apply for. So there is no general rule, it is rather specific. Most of the time it is more than 50%. Non-profit. Grants shall not have the purpose or effect of producing a profit to the applicant. But of course, the applicant can be profit-oriented. It's not excluded that firms, for example, apply to funding. Non-cumulative award means that you cannot accumulate 2 EU grants for the same project. Non-retroactivity means that you cannot apply for activities which have taken place before you apply to EU funding. So if you start anything, a project, an activity, and you intend to apply for EU funding, then you have to think reverse. First apply and then implement. Transparency and equal treatment are characteristics of the award procedure for the applicant. All the information that the applicant needs are available on the internet on the specific website of the program they apply for, and all the applicants are treated on an equal basis. For example, criteria are known, visible, and transparent. There are a series of criteria like the eligibility criteria or the selection criteria or the award criteria. I'm just giving some hints about what is hidden behind these criteria. For example, the award criteria, they are related to the project, quality of the project design, relevance of the project, quality of the partnership, impact and sustainability, measure in points, and then on a total of, for example, 100 points, you know how good your project is, and that's allow the award. Then you are awarded or then you are not. Here is the pie for the 7 years, 2014-2020, of all EU funding available in this period. Basically, you see there are 4 blocks. 4 blocks, and we will see this block the one after the other. The total funding for 7 years is 960 billion euros, and in each of these blocks you see you can find funding for your respective project, but you first have to identify the right programs or the right fund, and that's the whole thing. In blue, transnational programs are characterized by a centralized administration in Brussels, and projects should be implemented in a partnership or in a transnational partnership. So you cannot simply apply without European partner. You must have at least 3 different organizations applying together from 3 different member states, which is a minimum requirement. In the second block, which is in orange, the ESI Fund, European Structural and Investment Fund, it is decentralized. The member states are in charge of the management of these funds and of the allocation of these funds to the beneficiaries. So basically, Brussels does not decide anything about the allocation of funding on the local level, at the local level. For these, to apply to these funds, you do not need transnational partnership. Projects are mainly local, regional, and sometimes national. And then you have a fund, special fund for agricultural development or agricultural guarantee, which is a big amount only for this policy. However, not relevant for project applicants because they are direct payment to farmers. And finally, Global Europe is made to support the cooperation of EU and with the rest of the world, so with third countries. So tourism is cross-sectoral priorities in all of these blocks. That's the difficulty for tourism sector industries, because they may have difficulties to identify the right program. Let's browse the first category. Here are 5 transnational programs that I have selected for you, which could be relevant for tourism projects. Altogether, these 5 programs amount 90 billion euros for the 7 years. And tourism, except in COSME, the first one on the top left, tourism is never directly mentioned as a priority, but indirectly, these programs may support tourism and travel industry. I'll give you an example. With Horizon 2020, the program for research and innovation, which is the biggest EU program, you can support projects aiming at digitalizing content for cultural and creative industries, or you have projects aiming at reducing energy consumption and carbon footprint, or supporting smart, green, and integrated transport, or protecting the environment, sustainably managing natural resources, water, biodiversity, and ecosystem. You also have cultural heritage as a priority of this research program. You also have innovative spatial and urban planning, and freedom and security of Europe and its citizens, which are all of them preconditions for the tourism industry. Basically, that's the idea of this program. Tourism is never directly mentioned, but all of these priorities are related indirectly to tourism, like they are preconditions. Grants for projects under Horizon 2020 amounts between 2 million and 5 million euros and cover between 70% and 100% of the cost, which is exceptional, 100%. For example, non-profit organizations, they obtain systematically 100% of their costs, which is, again, exceptional for an EU program. I'll give you a second example with Erasmus+, the program for education and training in Europe. You can support all kind of target groups, which are learners and staff, so students, trainees, professors, teachers, trainers, staff of education institutions and civil society organizations, and you can support them to have a training or learning experience in another member state of the EU. We call that mobility projects. For all of these persons, for all of these target groups, you can elaborate projects, and then you're free to decide to what sector you apply the project. The EU only give a frame, mobility, with cost supported per day, and then you decide, okay, it's relevant for my sector, for tourism, and I select some partner abroad, and we elaborate together a training or learning project. In Erasmus+, you can also, you're not obliged to send students or training abroad. You can organize a cooperation between organizations, between at least 3 organizations for 2 or 3 years. It's called strategic partnerships. And then you get between a maximum of 300,000 euros for 2 years or a maximum of 450,000 euros for 3 years. And again, here you're free to decide a sector. So you can do a project, a strategic partnership for the tourism industry. So we have seen the research, innovation program, the education program with LIFE. You can support environment and climate action projects in all of these fields: water, waste, soil, forests, green and circular economy, chemicals, noise, air quality and emission, urban environment. All of these priorities are, of course, relevant and are precondition for the tourism sector. Again, here it's quite indirect, but you may be interested in getting some live grants, which amount per project between 500,000 to 1.5 million euros. With Creative Europe, the program for cultural and creative industries, you can here again support indirectly tourism through culture. What does this program support? For example, skills development or competencies and know-how development for the cultural and creative players, or internationalization of cultural and creative players, or supporting their networking, their European and international networking, but also international touring, events, exhibitions, and festivals. And finally, stimulating interest in and improving access to European cultural heritage. So again, here we are touching a little bit tourism, not directly, but of course it is relevant if you are active in this industry. Last but not least, in my list, there is the COSME or COSME program, call it the way you want, which is the program for competitiveness and enterprises of small and medium-sized enterprises. And one part of this program is dedicated to tourism. Here you can read the priorities which have in the past been supported in the field of tourism through COSME. Increasing tourism demand. For example, increasing tourism flows in low season was a call for proposal in 2015. Encouraging, for example, flows of seniors and youth as target group. Or diversifying tourism offer through, well, in 2015, the focus was on transnational thematic products, amongst other, in the field of maritime and subaquatic tourism, protecting natural sites, health and well-being, including spa tourism, wine and food, business tourism, educational tourism, rural tourism, agri-tourism, sport and tourism, cultural heritage, and contemporary culture, including, religious tourism, industrial heritage tourism. Well, it was some priorities in 2015. The difficulty is that for 2016, 2016, we do not have yet a good visibility of what the EU intends to fund within this program. I will say a word again about that. Where do you find these transnational programs, these 5 transnational programs on the internet? Here is the web page, the home page of the European Commission. And if you just Google European Commission, you access to this page. You have here a link funding, and then you can browse. I give you also here the direct link. In all of these fields, what grants are available. For example, here, tourism, of course. Let's have an example. It's an overview of the calls which are prepared for 2016. Calls for proposal, first of all, if this is new to you, calls for proposal is the way to select the applicant for funding. So you have to wait to be called. You have to wait that the European Commission publish an announcement or many announcements per programs in order to apply for your project. Well, like I said, some programs do not have yet published their so-called work program, so we do not know yet what calls will be available in 2016. This is the case of COSME. And as for the other programs, the visibility is quite high. Let's speak about Horizon 2020. There will be 4 calls in the next 2 years related to the thematics that I've mentioned. In Erasmus+, the deadline for applying will be spring. In LIFE, it will be autumn. And in Creative Europe, it will be also autumn 2016. For COSME, again, let's wait. In the coming weeks, we will have, the EU will publish the work program, and we can have more information about what transnational project can be funded in the field of this program. Let's browse the second sector, the so-called European Structural and Investment Funds. Here again, tourism is a cross-cutting issue. It's not directly one of these 11 thematic objectives, but it is in all of them. You can have an overview. Again, here we have technologies, we have the support of SMEs, we have combating carbon emission, climate change, resource efficiency, network infrastructures, and more than social and employment on the right column, social and employment and education priorities, but this time at the local and regional level. Through what? Through 4 funds. So when you apply for the structural funds or ESIF fund, you basically apply for one of these 4 funds. Altogether, they amount for more than 417 billion euros for 7 years. So it's a huge amount, and if you are based in one of the EU member states, you can surely get one of these. Once again, I repeat, tourism has not been included among these 11 investment priorities or amongst these 4 funds, but it constitutes rather a means than an objective. So for the EU, tourism is a means to obtain results in all of these 11 priorities. I think it's important to understand the approach of the EU about tourism. With the first one, with European Regional Development Fund, or ERDF, you can obtain funding for your local or regional or national project in one of the EU member states, basically for investment or infrastructure projects mainly, but not only. You can see here from the list, it also aimed at supporting immaterial investment like ICT application for e-culture and services. But of course, tourism infrastructure, if they are small-scale or related to natural and cultural heritage or related to the urban environment or revitalization of cities, they are eligible. One exception, the ERDF shall not support investment in airport infrastructure unless related to environment protection. Well, that is one of the major exceptions. So no airport infrastructure with ERDF. All the rest is possible, like health tourism, tourism for seniors, cultural and ecotourism, gastronomy tourism, sport tourism, whether it is infrastructure or services. Moving to the next fund, which is one of these four funds, the European Social Fund. So with ESF, you do not have, again, specific measure for tourism, but the focus lies on people and systems, so on education and training at local and regional level. And if you are based in one of the EU member states, you can actually, of course, train the workers of the tourism industry through the ESF. You can provide some specific training or some specific employment measure for them. The third one, the European Agricultural Fund for Rural Development, as you guess, is focused on rural areas of the EU member state. The focus lies on non-agricultural activities based in rural areas. These are related to tourism in a way that, for example, villages are renewed through new leisure and cultural activities. Activities or infrastructures. You see here the whole range of possibilities for funding for your project. What is important here is from one region to another, from one country, from one member state to another, the priorities may be slightly different. Because these four funds are regional funds, the regions of Europe may decide what is important for them. So the most important step for you, the first step is to go and browse what is to be funded in your region of Europe. And again, to identify who is the decentralized agencies in charge of this fund. The fourth example is the European Fisheries Fund, which is again here related to tourism insofar as it is funds, for example, tourism-related projects such as ecotourism, pesca tourism, accommodation, tourist trail, diving, and so on, aquatic biodiversity. Again, here it's regionally managed, so some difference between the region. Of course, if you are not a maritime region, this fund is not relevant for you. And whether you are in the Atlantic coast or on the Mediterranean sea coast, then it's, of course, a bit different. Where can you find the ESIF programs? The best way is to go first on the platform of the DG Regio, which is the Directorate General for Regional Policy of the EU. Here's the link. You select here in your country. And I propose you to simply click on search so that you have all results here in this search engine. And here you have the list of national programs per country. So if you are in Austria, Bulgaria, Belgium, you see here the first example. Of course, all member states are covered. You then click on the appropriate program below and you can follow to the national website of your program. If you want to apply to ESF, the website is linked here. And that's the platform of ESF, which is built the same way. You have a list of countries, and for each country, the operational programs you can apply for. Same apply to the agricultural funds. You have to first select your country, and then you can access the information at your national level. One more thing to know about the structural fund is that the rules could be a little bit different if you are in a least developed regions or if you are in a region in transition or in the most developed region. The idea is that the region in red here get more funds and the projects have higher co-financing rates. For example, if you are in a least developed region, you can get up to 80%, 85% from co-financing. If you are in a region of transition, you can get up to 60%. And if you are in a region in more developed region, you can get up to 50% of co-financing. With structural funds, you also have the possibility to do some cross-border cooperation projects, so implying two countries or more sharing the same border. It could be land border or maritime border. Here is the map of eligible territories. If you are located in one of these territories, marked with a color, it doesn't matter which color, then you could also elaborate tourism project in cooperation with your neighbor. Again, here it is locally, regionally managed. And you simply follow the link from the website that I've shown on the regional policy website. A similar approach applies for transnational cooperation areas. This is the same idea, but this time not between regions sharing the same border, but sharing the same area, let's say. For example, the Danube area or the Baltic Sea. And here are all the examples of eligible territories for this transnational cooperation. Well, if your tourism project is relevant at this level, because you want to provide, let's say, a region-specific tourism product, then why not have a look at these programs? They are called transnational cooperation programs. Interestingly enough is that within this cooperation, these cross-border cooperation programs or these transnational cooperation programs, tourism tops as one of the highest priorities covered by the project for the last period. As you can see, this is an official data provided by the European Commission in 2014 during an info day on EU tourism. So again here, have a look at your program in your regions, have a look at the priorities covered in this program, and try to identify which one are related to tourism. And there will be some. Last but not least, if you are based in a non-EU country, or if you are based in an EU country intended to cooperate with a third country, then you should go for Global Europe. Global Europe is a range of funds. Here are 4 examples, but there are some more, intended for specific region of the world with the aim to support cooperation projects. The first one, the Instrument for Pre-Accession Assistance, or IPA, IPA2, this is the second generation of this fund, is intended for the Balkan areas and, well, basically every potential membership applicant to the EU. So here we have countries like Serbia, Turkey, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Albania, Montenegro, Iceland, and these countries could apply to the IPA, including for tourism projects. I cite you here a list of typical tourism projects that you can get, for which we can get support in this region: development of new tourist products or services, development of small-scale tourist infrastructure, certification of local products and services, joint tourism promotion and marketing initiatives, implementation of modern technology and information systems, creation and implementation of common tourism development strategies. But the precondition is that you do that on a cross-border level. So that involves two countries of this region, or one country of this region and one member state. For example, Bulgaria and Turkey, why not? Or Serbia and Croatia. Or Serbia and Bosnia-Herzegovina. So it should be made on a cross-border basis. Second fund, the European Neighbour Instrument Fund, is intended for countries bordering the EU at the east or at the south part. The Eastern Partnership is composed of Belarus, South Caucasus countries, Ukraine, Moldova, and so on. And the Southern Partnership is the north of Africa, from Morocco to the Near East. With this country, you can again here have cooperation projects in a whole series of fields like food security, rural development, natural resources, energy efficiency, transport and infrastructure, vocational education and training. Again, here, tourism is not directly targeted, but indirectly. And the third fund, the DCI fund, is intended for the region that you can see here, including Asia and Latin America. With these countries, you can have cooperation and development projects, including in the field of tourism. And finally, for Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific countries, you should go and look what the so-called European Development Fund supports as projects. Where do you find more information about these Global Europe funds? Well, the link is EuropeAid, which is the Directorate General for Cooperation and Development. Here, funding on the front page, on the home page, and then you can also click on countries and region, and through both ways you are directed to the grant. To finish, I have some examples in order to test your acquired knowledge. Here's my first case. Let's say I am an applicant and I want from Lithuania in Europe, and I want to get EU support for canoeing tourism. So I want to purchase 15 new kayaks. What is the most applicable or appropriate programs of the EU? Is that LIFE? Is that the European Agricultural Fund? Or is that European Fisheries Fund? I give the solution. This is the so-called EAFRD. The reason why is that the project is not transnational. It involves only a local partner, a local applicant, and it is not a maritime region, so the most appropriate is the Rural Development Fund. Second example, we have here a project involving museums of the Adriatic coast from the countries you can see here from the list: Italy, Albania, Montenegro, Croatia, Slovenia, Italy. Together they have created a network related to the culture of the Adriatic, the network of museums. And with this network, they have collected some objects and improved the collection, the exhibitions of the museum. What fund was relevant for this project? Was it Creative Europe? Was it the ERDF? Or was it the Global Europe Fund, IPA? Here is the solution. It was IPA because it involved countries which were not member states, Albania, Montenegro, for example. But similar projects in the member state can, of course, be supported with the European Regional Fund. So it was a bit tricky. Third example, this is a local project in France, in the southern of France, aimed at developing pesca tourism. I think you have no difficulty to identify now the right fund or program. This is, of course, the European Fisheries Fund. And finally, my last example involved the consortium of beneficiaries from Germany, Austria, Finland, France, Italy, Latvia, Portugal, Slovenia, Spain, Greece, and Germany, aimed at supporting tourism-dominated communities, means territories, in order to facilitate the use of sustainable energy in these areas. The project has consisted, for example, in doing energy audits in 10 touristic facilities or organizing campaigns and so on. Which program has supported this project? The answer is Horizon 2020. As you could see, this is a transnational project involving many countries. So the two other funds which are proposed here are not applicable because they are only local and regional funds. To conclude, I would like to give a word about the steps in order to access to the grant. Your first step should be to understand this funding framework of the EU. I have tried in 40 minutes to do my best to give you this overview. And then, as a next step, you should identify the right programs. So I have given here some example of program, but that's not enough. Once you've done with that, you should identify the call for proposal. So the call are rather periodic, means that you should wait some months or 1 year, maximum 1 year, until the next call is published. But some funds also function on the basis of permanent call. And then you should generate a project ID. At this stage, I should say that if your intention is to support, for example, your participation in touristic events, or the organization of an event, or study visits, or the production of advertising materials for tourism, or some workshops, the EU considers these rather as measures, part of the project, rather than a project itself. So it may be not sufficient to have only the idea of organizing a workshop or study visits or conference to get funds. You should organize and think about a bigger project in which you will involve all these type of measures. And then you have more chance to be selected. Good. These are the steps of project formulation. Until you download the application package from the website, you fill the application form, you submit it, and finally you get the grant. With some chance, your project is selected. That's it. emcra can assist you in any step, or any one of these steps you have seen, either by consultancy. So I personally also do some consulting activities for EU grant applicants, through trainings and project management. We can assist in any aspect of your EU project management, and we also participate in conferences upon your needs. So let's start with a series of question and answers. You are free to type in the box question and answer if it's not yet the case, and I will try to do my best to answer your question. Otherwise, the presentation will be sent to you. Okay, there was a question. I could read it. Where can I find more concrete example of what has been funded under the previous programs as a possible source of inspiration? Very interesting question. Very well, because it shows that you should actually, yes, you should be proactive and always look for what has been done in the past in order to avoid replication, duplication, and so on. Where can you do that? Where can you find that? Well, for each programs, the EU establish every year a list of funded projects. This is part of the transparency policy of the EU, so all applicants should be visible. A list of projects is always published on the respective program's website. So there is, this is rather per program. But there is a database for all programs, which is a bit complex to understand, but you can search on Google for FTS beneficiaries. And you can Google FTS beneficiary, and that's the platform for EU beneficiaries, where you can find through and search through keywords what has been funded in the past. FTS beneficiary. You can Google that, and you should access to this platform. It's again fully transparent. Every euro, even small services contracts are of €1 has been published on this platform. Does emcra offer personalized consultancy workshops for projects? Yes, of course. So you simply contact us over this email address, which is written on the top, info@emcra.eu, and then you just formulate your question, your needs, whether it is a workshop or a consultancy, or in-house seminars or webinars, we can assist you. So there is no more questions. I was pleased to have this opportunity to briefly explain you today this EU approach and overview of EU funding. It may be frustrating in so few time for some of you, but it should not be frustrating. It should give you the idea and the motivation to go and search further information on the respective website of the EU and to contact us in case of needs. Thank you very much. I say goodbye from Berlin. Hope to hear and see you soon. Goodbye.